Yeah, so that said, this is more professional based.
We're going to get started here in just a second. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Good morning and thank you for joining us today. My name is Aaron Bowker. I'm a Chief CBP Officer and Public Affairs Liaison to the Buffalo Field Office. We'll be on record today to explain CBP policy as it pertains to our ports of entry and the legalization of marijuana in Canada. U.S. Customs and Border Protection will not entertain any hypothetical questions as it can cause confusion, so we will speak in generalities. At the conclusion of our speaker statements, we'll be able to take a few of your questions. At this time, I'd like to introduce Assistant Director of Border Security, Rick Roberts from Buffalo Field Office.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today at the Peace Bridge in Buffalo, New York, one of the busiest border crossings between Canada and the United States. I'd also like to thank the Buffalo Police Department and Deputy Police Commissioner Joe Vermalia joining us to discuss the legalization of marijuana just across the border in Canada. U.S. federal laws prohibit the importation of marijuana. Despite Canada's legalization of marijuana, our laws have not changed, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection will continue to enforce them. Requirements for international travelers wishing to enter the United States are governed by and conducted in accordance with U.S. federal law, which supersedes state laws. Although medical and recreational marijuana may now be legal in some U.S. states and Canada, the sale, possession, production, and distribution of marijuana, or the facilitation of the aforementioned, remain illegal under U.S. federal law. Consequently, crossing the border or arriving at a U.S. port of entry in violation of this law may result in denied admission, seizure, fines, and apprehension. CBP officers are thoroughly trained on admissibility factors in the Immigration and Nationality Act, which broadly governs the admissibility of travelers into the United States. CBP makes determinations of admissibility based on the facts and circumstances known to our officers at the time of entry. Regarding marijuana, generally speaking, the following are inadmissible to the United States. Any arriving alien who is determined to be a drug abuser or addict, any arriving alien with a narcotics conviction, or any arriving alien who admits to having committed an act which constitutes the essential elements of a violation of any controlled substance, law, or regulation of a state, the United States, or a foreign country. A Canadian citizen working in or facilitating the proliferation of the legal marijuana industry in Canada, coming to the United States for reasons unrelated to the marijuana industry, will generally be admissible to the United States. However, if a traveler is coming to the United States for reasons related to the marijuana industry, they may be deemed inadmissible. CBP officers are the nation's first line of defense in preventing the illegal importation of narcotics, including marijuana. This should go without saying, but we would like to emphasize that travelers entering the United States must be cognizant of what is in their possession. Those caught at the border with marijuana in their possession face, at a minimum, an administrative fine. However, depending on the totality of circumstances, they could also be arrested and face state or federal charges as well. We work very closely with our federal, state, and local partners, including the Buffalo Police Department, who are here with us today. Please do not attempt to enter the United States with marijuana in any form, including edibles and medicinal marijuana prescribed by a medical provider. Please do not drive while impaired. You will encounter a CBP officer when entering the United States, which only increases the likelihood that you get caught. Thank you. I'd now like to invite Deputy Commissioner Joe Vermalia from the Buffalo Police Department to the podium to say a few words.
Good morning. I'd like to address what Customs and Border Protection has touched on with driving under the influence. The laws have not changed. Driving under the influence of a narcotic or alcohol are treated the same, and you can and will be arrested for driving under the influence. We want to make sure our roadways are safe and that everyone operating a motor vehicle is doing so with their full faculties about them and not under the influence of any type of narcotic or alcohol. We work with our partners very closely at the border. We respond to calls when called by Customs and Border Protection, and we will address those issues accordingly. Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we can take a few questions. I'm going to ask you guys to kind of give me one at a time so we can answer them best we can. So take the first question. Go ahead.
Are you expecting to see an increase in searches of vehicles or people being detained at the border with potential of them carrying marijuana across?
No, I mean, this was illegal before. It's going to continue to, it's still illegal under federal law. So what we were seeing before is what we're seeing now. Obviously, there is a little bit of a potential for an increase in possession. We're aware of that. If people can legally obtain now, there's a chance that we see a little bit more of it. But no, we're not expecting any increase in searches.
Aaron Shaw
with Global News in Toronto. Based on what you're saying, someone who admits to criminal behavior, in other words, the consumption of marijuana previous to today, would they continue to be inadmissible based on the policy that you're re-articulating today?
Previous today, again, they could be. However, a lot of that's on a case-by-case basis, and it really depends on what the officer has in front of him at that time, which is why it's really hard to give an overall general statement on that. Previously, if you have a criminal conviction regarding some sort of drug use or abuse, yes, you could be inadmissible in the United States. But post-legalization, that changes. It really depends now at this point what you're doing when you enter the United States. If that illegal use is going to continue in the United States, that would end up being our concern.
I have one concern about with regards to somebody who may be traveling in the United States who works in the pot industry, like there may be government employees in Canada who work in the pot industry. If they are going on business, if they may be going to a grow operation with their ultimate destination, a state where it's legal, could they be denied entry?
Yes, they could, absolutely, yes. So we don't recognize that as a legal reason to come in for business purposes. So at that time, again, based on the circumstances the officer has in front of them at that time, it could lead to an inadmissibility, yes.
So clarification, so if it was a government employee working in the pot industry going to an official business in a state where pot's legal, that could be denied in New York?
Could be, yes.
Aaron, have you had any issues this morning since midnight?
We have not. We haven't seen any issues whatsoever. I've been outside all morning. It's been business as usual for us. Traffic's flowing through without a problem at all.
Should a U.S. citizen who has perhaps traveled to Canada consume marijuana and is now crossing back into the United States be concerned?
No, not at all. My concern at that point, again, as the Deputy Commissioner alluded to, would be whether you're driving while impaired. But a U.S. citizen is allowed to come back into the country. You may face a couple extra questions. If it's obvious that someone in the car has smoked or we smell it, you could be subject to search at that point. But barring possessing marijuana, yeah, you would be allowed to continue for sure. Good.
What would happen in situations where a Canadian who has perhaps been convicted of a minor cannabis offense and then receives a pardon from the Canadian government? How does it affect them as they cross the border into the United States after receiving a pardon?
Under inadmissibility laws, we do not recognize foreign pardons. So you could still be inadmissible to the United States. But again, I stress that's on a case-by-case basis. The officers have to look at what's in front of them at that time to make that determination.
Okay. You mentioned somebody who's caught in possession could be a small fine, like if they have a small amount. So if a Canadian citizen is caught with a small amount in New York State and they have to pay a small fine, would they be denied entry at a later date?
They could be. But again, it depends on the circumstances in that case-by-case basis and what happened with that original seizure than what they're coming in for today. So again, that's why we try and say those individual circumstances, a lot of the what-ifs, the hypotheticals, it's a case-by-case basis based on what the officer has in front of them at that time. Good.
Just to clarify, if a Canadian who admits to legally using cannabis at home, say they're coming across the border to visit family or friends, unrelated to marijuana, is admitting that still grounds for inadmissibility?
Post-legalization, it could be, but post-legalization, because a criminal act wasn't committed at the time in Canada, flowing through the border at that point it will more than likely just be normal for them.
So you are saying to say, if somebody admits to consuming marijuana October 17th forward, they should be fine?
Should be fine, but again, they could be found inadmissible based on the totality of circumstances of everything that is in front of them. But normally, for normal travelers crossing the border on a daily basis, you're not really going to see a change moving forward. This was something the officers could have asked before, prior to October 17th. I don't think it's something somebody heard or was asked that question a lot of before, and you're not going to see that continuing moving forward. Again, they're looking at what the inspection is at that time, what they're coming in for at that time, and only if they're led in that direction that they feel it really is a concern that they'd start asking those kinds of questions.
Eric, has the question sheet, the protocol of questioning people coming across the border been altered? Is it going to change as a result?
Not at all, and there's no such thing as a question sheet. There's two common questions people will hear when crossing the border. What's your citizenship? Do you have anything to declare while crossing the border? At that point, it's really up to the officer at their discretion what kind of questions they're going to ask. But no, we're not expecting any changes whatsoever coming across the border.
What do you say to Canadians about the importance of being honest and truthful about the answering of those questions, especially as it pertains to previous cannabis use?
Well, always being honest is important. And the officers are expert lie detectors. They're going to find out, and that's what's going to cause them to go down other roads if you start being dishonest about in answering the questions you're being asked. So yes, definitely be honest. If you are dishonest, there is a ground of inadmissibility that could bar you from re-entry. It's misrepresentation.
Have the officers gone through any different training now regarding?
It was illegal before, still illegal. Training's the same.
Again, how does this, lying at the border for a U.S. citizen, how does it affect their? Well,
they're coming in. They're coming in no matter what.
What is the result after that?
Well, if you lie to an officer on primary and they feel that you're lying, you're probably going to be sent to secondary at that point, and then they're going to get to the bottom of what it is. Was there a criminal act committed in Canada? Are they bringing something across that may be a criminal act? Are they going someplace where we would worry about an investigation at that point, where a crime might be being committed? But in a nutshell, for a U.S. citizen, at the end of the day, you're coming into the United States.
Okay. In terms of enforcement of the driving under the influence, how can you do that? I know with alcohol we have blood alcohol content. Marijuana, is there a specific test?
There is still standard field sobriety tests. There is also drug recognition experts, those that have been trained, they can come in and perform various evaluation tests to determine what you're under the influence of, what narcotic, marijuana, or anything else. So again, our interest is protecting the safety of the drivers, pedestrians on the roadway, and making sure that everybody is driving that is not under the influence of anything.
For alcohol, it's VAC of 0.08. Is there a threshold for marijuana use?
Having it in your system. So there's the blood test will determine what that is, but it also is what you are at the time, your motor coordination, your skills, your ability to answer questions, your ability to, conduct yourself, stand, do various field sobriety tests. So if you are in shape to drive a car and you have your faculties about you, then you're safe to operate on the roadway. But if you're not, then you can and will be arrested for driving under the influence.
We have time for one more question, and then we'll wrap it up here. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we can speak after the conference. All right, thank you everybody for coming today. Appreciate it.